Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. We have a friend in the house, Bill Chambers, the president and CEO of our Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
So what's going on at the Chamber?
Nothing. That's,
I know better than that because I see all your events. You've got your business after hours every month.
Yep.
You've got your luncheon, your traditional luncheon, and then you've got all these great ribbon cutting events that have really blossomed and turned into these great social fun things to attend.
We are, all kidding aside, we're a very busy chamber. We're a regional chamber, so we partner with some of our brother and sister chambers across the lower shore, including Delaware and Virginia. We just had the governor here, which was great. And what was interesting about that is that he arrived and one of his front folks said, he's going to talk about 5 minutes. And about 10 minutes into it, I went up to this gentleman and I said, so is he off script yet? But he spoke for about a half an hour. It was very nice. But yeah, we're busy this fall. We just had our golf tournament, which was sold out again. We did it at the Hyatt up in Cambridge. They were great hosts. We'll bring it back to Green Hill next year. We have our Mayors of Delmarva luncheon on the 19th at the Cambria Hotel in Ocean City. We got 7 mayors from all the significant towns and cities across the region. And they'll be asked a few pointed questions about how they're handling higher costs, how they're handling higher labor costs in local government, as well as law enforcement challenges that all of these towns and cities are having in recruitment and retention of law enforcement. So those are some of the things we talk to the mayors about. And then we have our annual awards luncheon. We'll be doing the tourism awards as well as the chamber awards, and that's the 26th at the Civic Center. And it's a wonderful atmosphere. It's in the arena. It's like the Oscars. It's probably my favorite event because the look on folks' faces when their peers recognize them for their leadership, their management acumen, running a business, our Volunteer of the Year, Agriculture Ambassador of the Year. This is just a real special event. I always look forward to that. In November, we're going to have a breakfast instead of a lunch, and we're going to feature, I think for the first time, at least publicly that I know of, all 3 of our female college university presidents.
Isn't it amazing? That's so great.
It is fantastic. I'm excited. So they'll be with us on the 9th at the Civic Center for breakfast. And then the 36th annual, and I wasn't around for the first one, Southern Delmarva Economic Forecast is December 1st at Salisbury University. Great panels. We'll have all of our economic development directors from Delaware, Virginia, and the lower shore of Maryland with us to start off. And then we have a really interesting session about climate change legislation, which has been a hot button topic in Annapolis for several years, and it's not going anywhere. As we all know, the state has made some commitments to zero emissions in several areas that concern a lot of people. So we'll have the Energy Administration Secretary with us. We'll have the Executive Director of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and then we're going to have the automobile dealers who are very concerned about all EV in 35. We'll have President of the Maryland Automobile Dealers Association with us and the Chief Lobbyist for Purdue Farms. It should be a very interesting and entertaining session. And then we'll finish the day, as we usually do, with all of our lower shore delegation to get their feedback on what we're going to expect in the 2024 General Assembly session, which usually the middle 2 years of a gubernatorial administration are the years when stuff happens.
I was going to say stuff happens. Things get done.
This year coming in 24 and 25, if we're going to see tax increases, if we're going to see new fees, it's all going to get put in the next 2 sessions. And for all of my friends on the Republican side of the aisle, you need to learn how to cooperate because saying no doesn't get anything done.
Right. I've always said that to have a successful business in Salisbury, you really need to participate in the chamber and be involved in these chamber events because just alone of all the events you have each year, that economic forecast in December tells a business owner so much about what's going on and gives you some real expert projections.
Yeah, it does. We're a regional economy, whether folks want to admit it or not. What makes our region strong is the synergy between the Eastern Shore of Virginia, Central and Southern Delaware, and the 4 lower shore counties. When you look at the economic impact that region has on not only their respective states, Virginia, Delaware, but Maryland, it's pretty impressive. and it will soon rival, as we continue to grow, what's already happened in the Baltimore-Washington corridor. It'll never be that grand because we'll never have that population. But in terms of diversity of business types, manufacturing, high-tech, education, healthcare, we got it all here, and it's doing nothing but growing. It's not stagnant. So I always told Governor Hogan this. The Lower Shore of Maryland, with its relationships with Virginia and Delaware, are the next true gold mine for the economy of Maryland, and I shared that with Governor Moore as well. So if he hangs around for 2 terms, maybe we'll see that come to fruition.
I like so much that you take a regional approach because it's so important. Sussex is in our SMSA, so all of our data has Sussex numbers in it. And there's the whole thing about competing with Delaware, trying to steal business from Somerset or Dorchester. The idea that we would all work together, that there are no lines, is really important. And I've seen that very much with your relationship with Dorchester Chamber of Commerce. You have group events, and those people really network well together.
We do. Dorchester and our chamber do an event every year. We do a chamber event with all the Lower Shore small chambers, Pocomoke, Princess Anne, Snow Hill, Berlin, and then we've got another big one coming up in January, which includes Rehoboth, Dewey Beach, Bethany Fenwick, the Ocean City Chamber, Ocean City Hotel Motel Restaurant Association, Berlin Chamber, Ocean Pines Chamber, and our chamber. So that'll be at Ocean Downs on the 24th. That'll be a couple of hundred people. But this, there's no grand plan here. This is all a part of recognizing that we're a regional economy. And there's still pushback on that. There's still some parochial attitudes that don't come into my backyard because either you're not welcome or you're going to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. But the bottom line is business owners in southern Delaware face the same challenges that business owners in Somerset and Worcester, Wycomico, and Dorchester face. There really isn't any difference. Yeah, there are different taxes and different laws, and there are some advantages to doing business in Delaware that there aren't in Maryland, as there are advantages in Maryland. But the bottom line is when I'm getting customers in my restaurant here in downtown Salisbury from Delaware and Accomack County, I can either embrace that or I could ignore it. And if I ignore it, I'm probably not going to be in business very long.
Yeah, and we've all been rooting cheerleaders for the Wallops Island stuff. We can certainly feed off of that, even though it's in Virginia.
Half the workforce at NASA Wallops lives in Maryland.
Right.
When we had Governor Hogan there last year, he wasn't aware of that. And I remember talking to him in advance, and I said, do you realize $1.8 billion is the contribution to Maryland from NASA Wallops, and over half of their 2,000 plus workforce lives in Maryland? Wasn't aware of it. And mentioned it to Governor Moore. He wasn't aware of it either. We're going to try and get him down there as well. But NASA Wallops with Virginia Space and with Rocket Lab is growing fast. And the corridor, the Route 13 corridor in Accomack County, which by the way has public sewer, the properties there east and west of 13 are selling quickly. And so there are entrepreneurs and investors that see the growth that will be taking place as a result of what's happening on base at NASA Wallops, but also the properties surrounding it.
Yeah, for years, one of the themes of the show is I'm wrong about everything. And I've always said, like, why are we trying to get involved with the Wallops? Nothing's really ever going to happen down there. You guys are crazy. But all the governments and the businesses kept those relationships with Accomack County, and now Wallops is a real thing.
It is. I mean, the director of NASA Wallops is a Salisbury resident.
Yeah.
So there are so many workforce development. I mean, everything you can imagine is intertwined with what's happening at NASA Wallops. The Navy presence, all these private DoD contractors that are down there now looking for space. Their big challenge right now is finding housing. As they continue to grow, Rocket Lab is going to add 200 jobs here in the next year and a half. They need places for them to live down there. Not to say we would welcome them here, but we need places for people to live here too. So It's a challenge. It's a challenge that we aren't facing in the business community on the other side of the bay, but we have a challenge here, and a lot of it is environmentally driven, and water and septic. Well water and septic is not the future of the Lower Shore, and we got to figure that one out quickly too.
Yeah, where are we on that? I know you're very involved with what's going on in Wycomico County.
Well, the Sanitary District legislation passed in Annapolis, which was a no-brainer. The last county in the state to develop a sanitary district. And I know the county executive's got some smart people that she's working with to get that stood up, but it's going to be a long, expensive slog, and it's not going to happen without financial resources from the federal government, the state, just not. And being a part of that group, that Water and Sewer Task Force, we have to move at a speed that other jurisdictions haven't moved at in the past, because property values and public health are at risk if we twiddle our thumbs.
Right.
We got to roll on this one.
Unfair question, but is our county positioned in terms of its leadership, both executive and legislative branches, to get this done in a time frame that makes sense?
They better get their acts together. I was on the phone with a leading Senate committee chairman a couple of weeks ago. Unrelated, just about the upcoming session. I wanted to schedule a meeting with this gentleman. First thing out of his mouth was, what the hell is going on in Wycomico County? And it doesn't help when publications like Maryland Matters and the Daily Record are writing stories about the dysfunction, and I'll use that word because it is. You know, a county executive suing a council, the council allegedly stonewalling appointments that the executive wants to make. This is not good theater. It's not theater at all. It's government not doing what it's supposed to do at the very basic levels. And I hope the executive and the council can find a way to move things like water and sewer on the fast track, regardless of their differences. And they really need to leave their personalities in the glove compartment of the cars every day. They really do, because a lot of this is driven by personality differences, and there's no place for that when you're in elected office, none whatsoever.
It seems like there's a lot of things they could be working on jointly, and I think they are to a degree, but it's not getting communicated out as in terms of a positive way.
No, and you know, Greater Salisbury Committee and the Chamber for years have implored former county executive, rest in peace Bob Culver, past county council presidents, to get your acts together and hire a public information officer so that the taxpayers can hear the good things that take place. Pirates Wharf is a great story, and your paper reported on it, thankfully. But those are the kinds of things that people don't get enough of, and we really need to sing the good things that happen in this county, what our great Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department does. Our Public Works Department, maintaining thousands of miles of county roads. There are a lot of good stories out there, but the only stories we seem to hear or seem to be the focus of conversation at the coffee shop is the problems.
Yeah, and I would argue our Parks, Tourism, Recreation Department is one of the best in the country.
It absolutely is. A great leader we have in Steve Miller. He's got a great team. I'm honored to serve as the president of that board. And knowing my way around the state of Maryland and other parks departments, that's where I came from in a previous career. This one's unmatched. This is kind of the Parks and Rec Department and Tourism Department that even the big boys in Montgomery and Prince George's kind of look at and go, I think I'll copy that.
Yeah. Bread and butter of Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, of course, is Salsbury. A lot of downtown Salisbury, retail questions, business questions. How are things going downtown? Suddenly there's all this criticism of downtown, which I can't understand.
Look, the parking thing was overblown.
Way overblown.
If that's an entree to air your other grievances about our past mayor, then maybe you should pick a different entree. The business folks downtown are concerned about the future. They're concerned about this mayoral race. They have crime concerns. I think Chief Mindshine is well aware of the concerns. I've had a chance to meet with him twice and let him know that we want to be engaged in what they do and to help be a part of the problem solvers and not problem creators. But crime's a concern in downtown. And we've got new residents living downtown, and we have entrepreneurs that just opened new stores and businesses, and there are opportunities for more of that. So, the concern is what's the next 4 years going to look like after November, and who's going to be leading the train. We had a very strong leader in Jake Day, and there are some people that disagree with some of the things he did, but the bottom line is he moved the damn city forward, and there's no disputing that. So we need a mayor, he or she, that's going to continue to move the city forward. Put their own stamp on it, but move the city forward. Because if we don't, jurisdictions like Dover and Milford, who are growing, they'll be happy to take to take away anything they can from folks that get disenfranchised with Salisbury.
Yeah, I'm on board with progressive stuff and moving things, but I'm hearing criticism of vanity projects, that we don't need Unity Square, they didn't need to move the city hall. Okay, Jake's gone, we can put Waverly back the way it was now,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and it really concerns me.
I would just say to those folks, stop it. Let's look forward. What can we do to improve what's been done? Not fix what you don't like. What you don't like is probably only bothering you. So be a part of building and creating and not disparaging and destroying because that doesn't get us anywhere. And by the way, if I'm an entrepreneur looking to locate in Salisbury and you guys can't agree on what direction the city's going in, I'm going to look somewhere else to do business.
Now, you and Pace and Greater Salisbury Committee are going to have a forum for the mayors. You want to plug that for me?
Yeah, October 17th, fourth floor of the Academic Commons, the Guerrero Academic
the big
Commons.
room.
Yeah,
Wow,
we'll be in
okay.
Assembly Hall.
Okay.
We think it'll be full, and we'll have all three candidates there, and there will not be any softball questions.
Wow.
So they're all going to have to answer for what they do currently with their professions, professional life, things that they've done in the past, and what the heck are they planning for the future. And I think there'll be several hundred people there because I think this not only has an interest for people that actually live and pay taxes in Salisbury. Salisbury is the economy of Wycomico County. So what happens in that city impacts every resident of the county. And a lot of the concerns that we get in the chamber, aside from concerns for business owners in the city, are from business owners not in the city. They're concerned about all the things that happen in downtown and what that means for their business in Fruitland or in Hebron or in Mardella, because it does, whatever happens in that town does drift out beyond the city limits.
I understand the timing was bad, but I feel like maybe our crop of candidates aren't as strong as they could have been. What are your members thinking about the choices that we're going to have in Salisbury for mayor?
Honestly, they're afraid of all three. And I like all three. I don't know all of them in an intimate way. They all have strengths, and I think it'd be foolish to say they don't have weaknesses, but that's kind of where we are in politics right now. I think the lack of experience among all three in government is the concern. And not that a business individual can't be a great elected leader, but it would help to have some organizational experience, maybe some governmental experience as a chair of a government board or commission, so that you kind of get the flavor for how government operates, because it's not the same as Walmart. It's not the same as private sector. It's a different animal, and it runs differently, and it moves differently, and it breathes differently. So I think one of the concerns is the lack of general governmental experience.
Yeah, you've got your operational function, just keeping everything organized and making sure the water bills get paid and your neighborhoods are happy. But then you've also got the progress element of coming up with new ideas that make people feel better about the community.
Yeah, look, when you become mayor or county executive, you're assuming an ingrained bureaucracy. And by the way, newsflash, you're not going to really change it. You're not. You need to work with it, adapt with it. You could fine-tune some things. You're not going to make any structural changes in the bureaucracy that's been there decades before you ever showed up. But really, it's the vision that leader needs to exhibit and be able to articulate, and relationships associated with that vision to get things done. Now, having strong relationships with county leaders as a mayor, having strong or forging strong relationships with legislative leaders is essential. And if you think you can operate on an island, you will not operate on an island. You'll be a one-term mayor.
You mentioned in the General Assembly the second year of that session, the second and third year, when the hard things happen, good things happen during the election year. The first year is just them sort of feeling out each other. What are we to look for? And also the dynamics with so many Republican leaders. Our people are Republican, big Democratic stronghold in Annapolis. How do you think all that's going to work out for the chamber?
We have great relationships with leadership in Annapolis, and we keep our relationships strictly focused on the business community. When I go to Annapolis and meet with the Senate President, it's about issues we have with concerns of things affecting the business community, not politics. But I will say this, I think our delegation is much better now at understanding the art of moderation and negotiation. The days of kicking your feet, screaming in the House or the Senate and saying it's my way or the highway, well, you're the minority, it's not your way or a highway. I think they've realized those days are over. I think Republicans in Annapolis have understood they've got to have symbiotic relationships with legislative individuals on their committees as well as on the other side of the bay. You got to tell a story, and nothing works better in Annapolis than telling a story. Rather than just saying I'm against something. So, let me tell you what this is going to do and how this is going to impact my small business. And it's important to get business stories up there. A lot of times business folks can't make it up there to testify. It's an arduous, long process. But if I can sit down with a Senate committee leader or a House committee leader and with 3 or 4 stories from real businessmen and women about how family medical leave is going to impact the way they operate their business, and have we considered the following possible modifications to that bill? We've got climate change legislation it'll adversely impact agricultural communities more than industrialized communities in our state. The Transportation Trust Fund is nearing depletion. How do we backfill that? We strongly urged Senate President Ferguson to put a business interest on his task force, and he did. He appointed the president of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, Mary Kane, who's very capable, to represent business interests, because zero emissions and the 2035 edict that we're going to go all EV, these all have significant consequences on employment and economic growth. And a lot of times these all sound really good. And California makes them sound fantastic.
Right.
But we're not California, and it's not apples to apples. And we need to tell those stories to those legislators about, not that the business community wants to eliminate moving towards a zero emissions economy. Let's do it pragmatically. Let's have conversations about what that looks like. And let's not rush into just arbitrarily declaring on this date we're going to do this. Because it will have consequences. Because, by the way, none of this is happening at the same speed in Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, or Pennsylvania. And business owners in Maryland have an option to move. Pennsylvania just lowered its corporate income tax rate to 4.99%. Maryland's is still over 8%, and the General Assembly doesn't even want to talk about modifying that. But if I'm a business owner in Frederick, Maryland, or I'm a business owner in Salisbury, and I can move my business 15 minutes up the road to Delaware.
Right.
Or I'm in Northeast Maryland, can hop the line into Southern PA and save 3% on my corporate income tax.
Yeah.
Combined reporting. It's been attempted as a legislative initiative for years. So, if Craig, you own a business in Salisbury, but you also want to own one in Delaware, your revenues from your business in Delaware are going to get taxed in Maryland.
Right.
There are legislators that think this is a boondoggle. We're going to find hundreds of millions of untaxed dollars. In states that have adopted combined reporting, businesses left the state.
Right.
And a lot of those states that had adopted it retracted it. So I just, when we tell stories to legislators in Annapolis from the other side of the bay, we're certain to make these real stories with real consequences, but also alternatives and ideas of how we can all achieve the same end, but let's maybe do it a little bit differently. Let's make a few left turns instead of full speed ahead.
I don't know where the improvements come, but I feel like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there were more crazy initiatives that came out of the General Assembly that kind of didn't respect the plight of the poultry industry or the farmers or the watermen in terms of like crab size regulation and the season for rockfish and the things that the farmers had to put up with in terms of buffers and like that. It was just sort of imposed without some discussion back and forth. But I feel like that's changed. I don't feel like Purdue Farms is constantly at war with the state of Maryland anymore. What's been the key to that improvement? Is it our lawmakers? Is it lobbyists? Is it the companies just being more assertive?
It's exactly what we just talked about. It's building relationships with people on the other side of an issue respectfully, and then having discussions about how we can all get to the same finish line, but taking into account the concerns and interests of affected and impacted industries and businesses.
Right.
Most legislators, there are some, most are willing to have those discussions. The ethylene oxide legislation, which would have probably shut down Trinity Sterile here in Salisbury. Legislation was sponsored by an Anne Arundel senator who did not know the consequences of just banning ethylene oxide production in Maryland with three plants that make this. One here in Salisbury that supply ethylene oxide, which is anesthesia, to hospitals and healthcare facilities. She wanted it banned, claiming that the communities surrounding these facilities were polluting the environment. There wasn't any evidence of it. And when we met, Dave Ryan, with our Salisbury Wycomico Economic Development Director, and I met with the chair of the Senate Environmental Education Committee, Senator Feldman, we said, first thing he asked us, is there a replacement for ethylene oxide? No. The EPA is studying replacement chemicals. Right now there isn't any replacement. So you're talking about the loss of a couple of hundred jobs if this ban goes into effect. He verified what we told him, and the bill never made it out of committee. I'm not saying that Trinity would have shut down and 200 people would have lost their jobs, but those are the kinds of things that aren't thought of, the consequences that we get involved with to say, let's have a conversation about it. We understand where you want to go, but to just say, given, starting July 1 of 2023, we're going to ban the production of ethylene oxide when there's no equal replacement to it on the market is just not smart.
You've been in town 7 years. You had a great career on the Western Shore, doing a lot of what you're doing now. We like to think of ourselves as special, and everyone should want to live here and all that. Are we special?
Yeah, this place is special. I was with my wife at a restaurant in Calvert County a couple of days ago, and some folks in there said, "When are you coming back?" And I said, "I'm not coming back because I live in Wycomico County, and I love the Lower Shore." From the minute we got here, we were welcomed, and it was genuine, warm welcome. It wasn't just you're the come here, and we're going to keep one eye open, checking you out. Everyone was open and friendly, and it's not like that too many places. You got to go to some real rural places in the South to kind of get the same flavor you get here on the Lower Shore. People are honest, they're forthright. When they don't know something, they tell you they don't know it. And they're listeners. I've become a better listener being here than I probably was in my younger years. So I would tell any business owner, and I have, or someone looking to retire, even though Maryland is not a great state to retire in, this is a great place to live over here. You got everything, and you're close to everything. So if you really got to see that Broadway show, you're 2 hours to D.C., and then you can take your car and come back to the Lower Shore.
He's Bill Chambers. He's the president and CEO of the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. We're thrilled he had time to be with us here today. Bill, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate it.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.